So last week, publisher NIS America and developer Falcom released a demo for the next entry in the long-running Ys series, Ys 9 Monstrum Nox. As a long-time fan of the series and fledgling content creator, constantly looking for opportunities to dispense opinions that many probably don't even want to hear, I thought, why not do an impressions video? Obviously, my thoughts are based purely on the demo, which I guess you could just download for yourself. Why am I even doing this video? Anyway, I'm hoping to review the full game when it releases in early February, but until then, let's talk impressions. First things first, let's talk about what's actually on offer with this demo. At the time of making this video, it's only available on PlayStation 4, despite the game also releasing on Switch and PC when it launches in a month or so, and it offers 10 minutes of gameplay in one of two locations, which the player is able to choose at the demo's opening. It also allows you to choose from a whole bunch of different difficulty settings, which range from easy to the hilariously over-the-top lunatic setting. Finally, it's also worth noting that there are 4 characters in total across both areas of the demo, with each dungeon exchanging one team member out for a different member. In the interests of being as thorough as possible, I have so far played through both areas of the demo and killed all available bosses on the normal difficulty setting. So, what exactly is Ys? For the uninitiated, Ys is an action JRPG that began life in 1987 on the PC 8800. Look, it's an old Japanese gaming system. I haven't got time to go into it now. Just look it up for God's sake. Anyway, since then, developer Nihon Falcom, or just Falcom as they're more commonly known nowadays, have become known primarily for this series and the excellent Trails series. In recent years, the Japanese developer has seen a renewed interest in the West, as their output has seen a steady incline in popularity. In fact, you can now purchase pretty much every Ys game and most of the Trails games on Steam, as well as various other formats, an action I would recommend for any fan of turn-based JRPGs and action RPGs, respectively. The most recent entry in the Ys series, Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, was relatively well received by fans and critics, and while it had a few port issues on launch, it essentially ended up selling well on all formats, including the then fledgling PlayStation Vita. Rest in peace, PlayStation Vita, we love you. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is Ys 9, right? So do I need to play all of the others first? And the short answer is, no you don't. While some entries lean heavier into referencing past events than others, every Ys game pretty much stands as its own experience, despite existing as one narrative in a persistent universe, unlike, say, the Final Fantasy series. So with all that said, does Ys 9 seem like it's worth your time? And the answer is, kind of. Let me explain. Story-wise, there's almost nothing to go on here. Other than a few hints that only the most eagle-eyed of fans will spot, it's pretty much worth omitting thoughts on this entirely from this video. All I can say is traditionally, Ys stories vary from great to mediocre, but almost always competently facilitate the mechanics on display, so I guess the assumption would be that this one will be no different. So let's talk about presentation. Graphically, the game is, well... Okay, so I get it's coming out day and day with Switch, which is less powerful hardware. And I also understand as a fan of the series that gameplay is king in Ys, and graphical fidelity has never been Falcom's chief goal. Having said this though, for a game that's coming out at the end of the PS4's life cycle and way into the Switch's life, I was hoping that it would look a little better than it does. Both provided areas are pretty bland, and animations, character models, and environments look almost comparable to Ys 8, with some actually looking worse on occasion. It's not something that will bother me particularly if the game excels in other areas, but it's worth pointing out that this entry doesn't look like it will be the graphical leap forward that some fans may have been hoping for. One final point on this, it's also worth noting that the game actually released in Japan in September of 2019, so what we're seeing in this demo is more than likely close to final when it comes to its presentation, meaning I wouldn't expect much if any improvements in the final release. When it comes to sound, it's also pretty much business as usual for a more modern entry in the series, with hit-and-miss, anime-esque, yet charming voice acting, and an awesome soundtrack. Seriously, the soundtrack to Ys games are almost always one of its standout features. So now we've covered how the game looks and sounds, let's talk about what many fans, and probably many newcomers, will be most concerned about: the gameplay. As I said earlier, Ys is an action JRPG series. Generally, you'll be spending your time traversing dungeons, killing tons of enemies with a smooth, real-time combat system, and fighting bosses. As expected, this is the part that Ys 9 nails, with each character feeling distinct and combat feeling fluid and smooth. Such praise is doubly true for the boss battles, which were both great fun here and even harken back to older bosses from the series. Also, Ys 9 has added some new options for movement and traversal. If you've been following this game since its announcement, you may have seen this in its trailers. Players can now teleport to specific ledges, run up walls, warp to air-based foes, and perform a glide-like maneuver to reach faraway areas and ledges. Such additions place more focus on movement and platforming, and while there's no example of them being used to their full potential in this admittedly brief demo, it's a nice inclusion that could bear more fruit in the full game. However, having said all of this, there is one thing to point out about Ys 9's gameplay, and that's its frankly weird default control scheme. As standard on PlayStation 4, square is attack, L1 is sprint and dodge, R1 is used for special attacks, X is jump, triangle is lock onto an enemy, and circle is change character. Those last two, particularly triangle as lock on, just felt so weird to me. I mean, I may be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure I've never seen triangle used for that in any third-person RPG ever, right? Anyway, if like me you do struggle with the default settings, fear not, as all buttons can be rebinded in the options menu, as well as any changes to camera inversion or a plethora of other settings you may wish to have a look at. Finally, let's talk about the features outside of combat, such as the game's leveling and equipment systems. Although it's impossible to say from such a brief demo, it seems that this is once again standard fare, with new gear being found in chests throughout the game, which bolster or improve stats and abilities. Also, while this was again not explained properly in the demo, it seems that there is also some sort of crafting system present, as you're able to farm ingredients like copper, iron and wood from resource points throughout the demo. Well, we'll have to wait and see just how deep and important these systems are in the final release. The inclusion of these elements is nonetheless worth noting. Also, as a brief final aside, I do have some small concerns about microtransactions here. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think Ys 9 is going to be a gacha game or anything, but upon completing the demo, you are told that the game is available alongside a deluxe edition. Again, according to the demo's end screen, the deluxe edition reportedly includes 25 pieces of DLC, which will include, quote, cosmetics, attachments, materials, and consumable items. While this will probably be similar to the model shared by other JRPGs like those in the Tales series, it still seems that players may be able to get ahead by spending a little more real money. Of course, we won't know any of this for certain until the game launches, so just how much grinding is required to attain these items or how much is gated off to the player without spending more money remains to be seen, but it's nevertheless worth pointing out to those interested. All in all, as a Ys fan, Ys 9 is looking pretty much like business as usual for the series. While I'm sure that myself and many others will be fine with that, it also does feel a bit of a shame that Falcom weren't able to push the envelope a little more with this latest entry and evolve the game's mechanics and presentation to make them feel a little more contemporary. Time will tell, and I look forward to the full release, which I'm planning to review when it launches on February 3rd in North America and February 5th in Europe. But until then, this demo is free for all to try on the PSN right now, so maybe give it a go. Or failing that, maybe check out some of the older Ys games. I kind of feel like they might give you a better indication of what you're in for than this brief and somewhat underwhelming taste of Ys 9.